Ever wonder what life would be like without fear? I mean, really wonder. Like, no fear at all.
It's a question that's fascinated philosophers and storytellers for centuries.
And today we're going to dive into it, taking a look at, well, it's kind of unusual source material we got our hands on.
This is going to be a fun one.
It's a transcript, no author, no context, just the title, A World Without Fear.
And honestly, the mystery just makes it more intriguing, doesn't it?
It really does. It just lays out these scenarios, little snapshots of everyday life, but with this twist.
A world where fear doesn't exist.
No fear. So our mission isn't to track down the creator or anything. It's to analyze what we've got.
Yeah, let's pick apart these scenarios and see what they can tell us about. Well, fear itself.
You know, how it shapes us, what might replace it, maybe even what we take for granted because of it. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Okay, so the transcript starts with some pretty mundane stuff, almost comical in a way.
Yeah, like it's painting this picture of a world that's maybe a little too cautious.
A little too cautious, I don't know about that. Check this out. We've got a kid, probably 8 or 9, asking his dad to check for monsters under the bed.
8 or 9, come on, that's prime monster under the bed age.
Exactly. But in this world, the dad actually does it, like without a hint of, you're too old for this.
Interesting.
Then there's this other scene where a guy is obsessively turning off every single light in his apartment, like chanting about saving energy.
Oh, I know that type. Makes you wonder if their electric bill is really that scary.
Right, so it gets you thinking, does eliminating fear just lead to this hyper-caution?
Like, are people so fixated on avoiding every possible risk, no matter how small, that they end up missing out on, well, everything?
No spontaneity, no exploration, just pure, unadulterated safety.
And that kind of makes you wonder, what would a world full of risk-averse people even look like?
Would we have any great inventions? Any daring discoveries? Any art that pushes boundaries?
Good point. It's like, if nobody's willing to take a chance, does progress grind to a halt?
Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? This perfect, safe world might actually be kind of boring.
Sterile, even. A utopia with no flavor.
But then the transcript takes this sharp turn. We go from these everyday situations to some pretty high-stakes stuff.
Okay, things are about to get interesting.
Yeah, we're talking a plane hitting some serious turbulence, a fire alarm blaring in a crowded building, a person about to give a live presentation to millions of people.
Talk about pressure.
Right. But here's the thing. Even without fear, the characters still react.
They still recognize the danger. They still take steps to protect themselves.
It's like this instinct, this self-preservation that kicks in, but it's not driven by that paralyzing fear we're all familiar with.
Yeah, there's a clear distinction there. They're not frozen in terror. They're just, well, dealing with the situation.
Rationally and calmly.
Which, let's be honest, is probably how we all wish we could react in those situations.
Absolutely. And the transcript really digs into this with the presentation scenario. The speaker, even though they're not afraid, is still super nervous.
Nervous? Why? I thought we were talking about a world without fear.
I know, right? But it seems like even without fear, other emotions can still fill that void.
Like what? Excitement. A sense of responsibility.
Exactly. Think about it. The weight of expectations, the thrill of the challenge, those things don't just disappear once his fear is gone.
That's so true. It makes you think about those times in your own life when you've been nervous but not necessarily scared.
Totally. Like before a big game or a performance, maybe a first date, there's definitely a difference.
It's like there's this whole spectrum of emotions that we don't always fully appreciate because fear tends to, dominate the conversation.
It really does. Okay, so then the transcript throws us another curveball. This time, it's a job interview scenario. The person completely misses their interview and just shrugs it off.
Misses their big interview, and they're not freaking out.
Nope. They make some excuses, totally rationalize it, and move on like nothing happened.
Now that's interesting. Makes you wonder what happens to accountability in a world without fear, doesn't it?
I mean, if there's no real consequence for messing up, do we even care about following through on commitments?
That's a great question. Does responsibility become this abstract concept that's easily dismissed?
Or does something else take its place, some internal drive that keeps us on track?
I don't know. This is getting deep.
Tell me about it. And then to top it all off, the transcript takes us back to that plane hitting turbulence, and one of the passengers just casually says, "Wake me up when we get there."
Wake me up when we get there. That's kind of unsettling, isn't it?
Right, like, is that peaceful acceptance or just plain apathy?
It really makes you wonder, is there a danger in becoming too detached, too indifferent?
Even if it means living without fear.
Exactly. Like, are we trading one set of problems for another, a whole new set of challenges we haven't even considered?
This transcript is really making me think, maybe a world without fear isn't the utopia we imagine.
Yeah, maybe it's more like trading in one set of anxieties for another.
Overcaution, emotional flatness, lack of drive, that doesn't sound like paradise to me.
And the thing is, the transcript never tells us how they achieved this fear-free existence in the first place.
That's true. Did they invent some technology? Was it some mass psychological conditioning?
And what was the cost? What did they have to give up to get there? To me, that's the biggest question of all.
Wow, that's really something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
This world without fear really left us with more questions than answers. But hey, that's what deep dives are for, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes the best explorations are the ones that leave you pondering long after they're over.
Until next time.
See you then!